So it is gay. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 2 of The Summer Hikaru Died. And I want to clarify a couple things right off the start. So I was told in the comments on my first impression that this series is explicitly gay. And that it is meant to be seen that way, and that the author has literally talked about it being queer. Which in that case, like, I guess maybe it'll just get more explicit as it goes on, because the first episode was being very subtle about it, was kind of playing around with the idea. That's why I kind of talked about it, like, about not being sure, and kind of it feeling almost like it could be like queer baity, rather than actually committing to anything. And the idea was brought up as well that it's like, oh, but Hikaru literally says I love you or whatever, and it's like, you know, male friends can say that to each other without it being romantic, right? None of the times in the first episode did I ever really get the vibe that there was actually romance there. It just felt like they were kind of playing around with the idea. But if it does get more explicit, cool. I mean, I'm obviously all game for that. My channel is called fucking Princess of Gay. Just, like, I very clearly support that. I was just saying with the first one that it didn't feel like it was committing to the idea of it. But also something to talk about. I was also mentioning how it was a very sudden, abrupt, and just quickly paced episode. How things felt like it was just rushing into it. But apparently the manga is actually worse with that. They actually added the opening scene with the forest and everything. That wasn't in the manga. Originally, it's like, I was told that the confession scene where Hikaru's face melts and everything, that was like page 8. And it starts with the ice cream shop stuff. And it's just like, oh. So the anime is actually making it less rushed. That's weird. That's usually not something that happens with a lot of anime adaptations in general. So it's like that's really surprising that the anime is actually adding more to it. I think the only other anime that I can think of off the top of my head, there's probably others that I just don't really know of because I'm not a manga reader typically. I think the only one that I know of that adds more and makes it, less rushed is One Piece. And I know a lot of people very much disagree on this, but I think One Piece's anime adding in a lot of that actually drastically helps it. And I have actually read a good amount of the One Piece manga. I've read up to the end of Alabasta with the manga. And I can tell you, it's better in the anime because of the pacing. But I know that I'm in the minority on that thought. But either way, we're not talking about One Piece here. We're talking about Summer Hikaru Died. And apparently the hamster guy we saw also wasn't introduced this early in the manga. So that's really interesting. They're really, like, kind of trying to, I guess, fix the pacing of the manga, which is, again, just really fascinating to me. But it was interesting, and I believe what I said was kind of somewhere around, I needed to see more before I could really accurately judge this series. And so now we're getting back to it. And we're getting back to it rather quickly because, as you may have seen last week, I did drop Turkey Time to Strike. Not because of it being bad. It's very much not. It's great. But I've kind of started to feel like it just was one of those shows that I would rather watch on my own time. It seems like a very casual viewing show and one that I'm not going to have a huge amount to say about. Last week's episode was a rare exception to that, and it felt like it's just like the show's not going to be like this episode every week. In fact, that's going to be more rare, I feel. And it just gives the vibes that most of it's going to be very slice of lifey and just not give me much to react to. So I felt like it would be better watched on my own time. And I held a poll to replace it. And I decided, since it was a currently airing show, I'm going to choose 2 other currently airing ones that I did first impressions to as the options for this poll to replace it. It was Gachiakata and this. And this one by a pretty notable landslide. And so, yeah, we're getting back to this. I'm definitely interested to see more. And if it does get more explicitly queer, awesome. And I'm very interested to see the horror elements of this too, because I do enjoy horror. And it seems like it's like kind of delving into that as well, with like the aspects of not just the, the shape changer, but also the fact that like by the end of the first episode, Hikaru has killed a person. There's also the kind of mystery elements to it. Like, okay, why did this old woman seem to know what was going on? What was this secret about the forest being talked about? What did they do? I think I compared it to, like, Shiki, if I remember right. If not, I thought about it at least. But, like, if you've never seen the anime Shiki, it's really good. You should check it out. It's about vampires. But it's one of those shows that, yes, it talks about humans being the real monsters. Yeah, laugh it up. It's such a tired trope. But Shiki does it so fucking well that you don't even, like, think about how it is so tropey. Shiki handles it in such a phenomenal way. The visuals are fantastic. It has one of the most memorable opening themes I think I've heard in anime. And I've even made an AMV about it, which you could check out here on this channel. So, you should just, if you look up Shiki on the channel, you should be able to find it. But yeah, I made an AMV for this series too. And Hikaru is so far kind of giving me some Shiki vibes with the mysteries in the village and the idea that the village could be behind things to some degree. So I'm very curious to see where this goes. But I know that this series has been receiving a lot of attention and a lot of love. It's been like getting really popular. And I want to continue to see why. So we're going to get into this episode and find out. Let's get this going. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Well, yeah, you were definitely right in the comments on the last video. Because while the first episode made things a lot more subtle and baity, for lack of a better way to put it, this episode was not subtle in any way, shape, or form. This episode made it super clear that this is entirely an allegory for queerness. It is so aggressively clear. From the scene with Yoshiki sticking his hand inside of Hikaru, which there is a lot to unpack there, to the memory of Hikaru as a kid being told by his father that their family has, like, some kind of deal with the monsters, but that if he finds a girl that he should marry her, and it's like it cuts from that to him with Yoshiki, and it's like, oh, come on. um Not to mention, like, with the knowledge of this being queer, you can also read into a lot of like how the village is handling things, the things that this like woman said to Yoshiki here. It's like, oh, her warning for him to stay away can absolutely be read as like a woman from, like, let's say a very traditional village telling a kid to stay away from, queer people and queerness in general. And it doesn't even have to be from like this small village. It's like you see this even in like larger areas in the real world and stuff, where it's like traditional people will tell like their kids, their nephews and nieces, just, kids around them, to stay away from that kind of stuff because it'll corrupt them and it'll make them, lesser if they mix in with it. Using like the phrasing in this, basically saying that like the more mixed he'd become like less human and stuff, is very much the same kind of language and hate and bigotry that a lot of these kinds of traditionalist people will spew about that, and use as scare tactics to keep kids away from, queerness. There's also just the very blatant line, like before Hikaru unbuttons his shirt and everything, where he said like this felt like very what's the he didn't use the word erotic, but he used something like that. Hold on, I'll mute this and go back to that real quick. Also, I clicked on it. That like marinated raw chicken, that is just a picture. That is absolutely just a picture. Raunchy. That's the word he used. Also, he was blushing very heavily while looking away and everything. Yeah, it's super fucking blatant. It's super fucking blatant. The vibes this is giving me is that they're using the idea of this monster as an expression of queerness, and these villagers are like supposed to be like traditionalists, conservatives, queer phobic people who are trying to keep others away from it and keep that out of their village and everything. They see it as a threat. They see it as frightening. They see it as an interruption of their way of life. And to the point where they even call in help from someone, which can absolutely be interpreted in the same way that these bigots in the real world will like call in a pastor or someone like that to speak to kids about this kind of thing, to try and veer them away from being queer, or even like go as far to like send them to a conversion camp, stuff like that. It keeps it in the realm of this series to where it's like you can still just view this from the perspective of like this spiritual monster thing, whatever exactly it's supposed to be. But like it's also written and expressed in a way to where you can see what the intent is. You can very much understand what it's going for. And the fact that you are able to like just view it as like this kind of piece of horror media and separately see it as an allegory for queerness is really impressive. On top of like the creepy visuals and crazy moments in this, The mystery aspect, the just constant paranoia and everything. Like, we actually even saw another one of these creatures. We saw this, like, this Junji Ito, like, long-necked woman spirit thing that was going to latch itself onto Yoshiki, but Hikaru devoured it instead, which was pretty wild. Because Hikaru very clearly cares greatly for Yoshiki, loves him, and is actively choosing to protect him by any means necessary. And obviously this is going to go into extreme lengths where he's going to be killing people who aren't necessarily a threat to Yoshiki, but Hikaru will perceive it that way because we know Hikaru's perception of things is not entirely correct in terms of humanity. But for example, if Hikaru knew about this spiritually aware woman who warned Hikaru, or who warned Yoshiki here, 100% she'd be dead. He would, without question, without hesitation, devour her, or, you know, kill her in some other way like he killed the old woman, because he would see her as a threat to Yoshiki. And you saw the way he was looking at that the classmate, the girl, who seemed to be probably pretty spiritually aware herself. She was noticing something strange was going on, and he was like glaring at her in a very uncomfortable way. And I feel like he's trying to figure out if she's a threat, if she is going to possibly like, not necessarily hurt Yoshiki, but like, I don't know, just be any kind of level of threat to him in any way, shape, or form. It's genuinely fascinating because it's like it's using this horror story, this mystery horror story, as an allegory for queerness, especially in terms of, you know, queer youth. But it's meant as an allegory. You're not supposed to view it necessarily as literal. And that's one of my, I think, concerns at the moment. I'm worried that they're going to try to make it more literal, to the point where Yoshiki and, like, Hikaru might, like, more directly get together or something. And there's a side of me that doesn't want that to happen, because I feel like it works better with the more allegorical nature of it as it is here. Like, don't get me wrong, you can have moments where they're, again, Hikaru's like blushy, and but I don't want it to be like an explicit romance between them. Like, I feel like that would kind of take away from the messaging of it by having it be too explicit. I feel like, again, having it be more allegorical feels like it fits with the nature of this series better, and with what the messaging and theming is trying to get across. Like, if you just make it explicitly like them getting together, it's like, then it's like, what was the point of all the allegory in the first place? Just make it explicit. The allegory feels like it's almost an intentional aspect of it in order to maybe not necessarily get around censors, because there's a lot of anime that are like very explicitly gay. But more so to express this kind of story, to express these kinds of themes and ideals in a way that anyone can connect to. Like, in a way that, like, you'll be able to understand without having to directly confront the idea of homosexuality, by expressing it through an allegorical horror story. something that, can get a lot of people's attention. Because there's so many horror stories out there that use allegory to talk about a lot of themes and ideals. And yeah, I think a lot of horror fans honestly seek that stuff out at this point. So this will definitely get in a lot of that group to watching this show a lot easier. Because I feel like there's a lot of anime fans who, if you just tell them, oh, this anime is just super gay, they're going to avoid it. I feel like that's why Yuri on Ice didn't do as well as it could have. Or Given, or so on and so forth. Anime that are, like, very explicitly gay. That did have a good audience. Like, Yuri on Ice had a great audience, especially with the queer community. And Given definitely has a very loyal fan base, but not a big one. And I feel like if you, like, introduce a lot of these animes via other ways, other manners, people are a lot more likely to watch them. Like, if someone asked, what is My Hero Academia about? And a person told them, oh, My Hero Academia is this superhero anime, there's a bunch of queer characters in it. It's like, if that was one of their selling points, I feel like the person asking would kind of like turn away from it a little bit, unless they're queer or an ally or a strong ally themselves. Um, and I'm not kidding, by the way. My Hero Academia has a bunch of queer characters in it. It has two notable trans characters with Tiger from the Pussycats, and then Big Sis Mag from the villain side. It has Himiko Toga, who is like excessively bisexual, to the point where it's like she actively like lusts over both Deku and Ochako, and various other examples here and there. Same with One Piece. If someone asked what One Piece is, most people are going to tell them, oh, it's this fun pirate show, has a lot of cool action and stuff. They're not going to mention how One Piece is a systematic breakdown of corrupt fascist governments and hateful ideologies. Because it's like, oh, people are going to turn away from that real quick because it's going to sound either boring to them or preachy. But that's what One Piece is about. Like, if you've watched One Piece... sorry, we're having a little bit of lag here. Sorry about that. But if you've watched One Piece for any notable length of time, like, that is, like, explicitly what One Piece is about. Also, One Piece also has a shit ton of queer characters in it. A lot of trans characters, a lot of gay characters. Like, and they're really well loved, too. I mean, outside of maybe the new comma, one of the most beloved characters in One Piece is Bon Clay, who is gender fluid and super fucking gay. Oh my god, what is happening? Hold on. Wow, like, I am sorry, we are experiencing like super heavy lag. I don't know like what's going on with my computer right now. I don't know if like something is like some kind of background process is happening, but I apologize for that. It's like whatever the fuck is going on. It's like freezing and lagging like super hard, especially if I get like too expressive. Which sucks because I'm not usually super expressive, but I'm talking about things that, are a big deal for me. And the allegorical nature of the summer Hikaru died so far, and the way it's handling its queer topics and themes and messages with this allegorical nature, especially mostly in this episode so far. Because again, episode 1 handled it a lot more subtly, a lot more, again, for lack of a better word, baity. I don't like to use that word too much because it's technically not accurate here. I'm not saying that the first episode was queer baiting. I'm just saying that's kind of the vibe it was giving, more so than being obvious about it. But the second episode, it's like, oh no, the kid gloves are off. We're just going head on into the gayness. It's so blatant. even if they're still using, they're still expressing it through the allegory and everything, it's still so aggressively blatant in this episode. Um, so yeah, it's really interesting. Um, this was a really good episode. It was just a really good episode with a lot of good themes and messages expressed in it. And some moments that were kind of creepy, some moments that were maybe a little uncomfortable. And I think that's the point. I think expressing this through the lens of horror, having it be creepy, having it be uncomfortable, having it be paranoia filled and everything, is actually a great way to express this, because these are kind of emotions that a lot of queer people, myself included, feel navigating the real world, especially navigating a world filled with people who don't want us to exist. And especially when those people who don't want us to exist are in power. That's never good. And that leads to a lot of paranoia, a lot of horror, a lot of anxiety, a lot of terror that we have to go through. And so having this kind of message, these kind of themes expressed through horror, is actually a brilliant way to do that, I feel. And again, to have this be about like adolescence as well, to be about like clearly the idea of teenage boys coming to terms with the idea of being gay and learning what that means, and kind of like this even scary inner emotions about that, the kind of fears. It's like, what will people think if I come out? How will people treat me? Do I even feel like this, or is there something wrong with me? These are very much emotions I have felt. And I know like other people have gone through a lot of this too, especially people who have come out younger. I didn't get that privilege. I didn't come out until I was well into adulthood. Um, to put it into perspective, I came out, like really came out as trans in November of 2017. I graduated high school in June of 2011. So it was 6 years after I graduated high school that I came out. And I only like came out as like even just queer in general only a couple years before that. Like I was still well into adulthood by the time I came out at all. So it's like I there's a lot of times I wish I could go back to my childhood, to my school years, and like slap myself, my younger self, in the face and tell her, it's like, you are a woman, you are non-binary as well, you are also pansexual, embrace yourself, come out, don't hide it until you're an adult, please, for the love of God. It's just, I have a lot of regrets about having come out as late as I did. And I know there's people who come out even later. Like, there's been people who come out even in their, like, 60s and 70s. And there's a lot of people who also, like, don't even understand until, like, their older generation what it really means to be queer. And they come out because they realize, like, oh, that's what the feelings I've had all these years have been. And it's like, that's really heartbreaking. And then there's like people who have like, you know, kept in the closet for so long because they've been, it's like, oh, I've already gotten older, how do I come out at this point? And they just keep closeted for so long because they just are so afraid what people will think if they come out at this point in their lives. I've seen examples of all of this kind of stuff, and it's really heartbreaking. The fact that this show, like, just a single episode too, is making me, like, discuss all of this, is making me, like, express my thoughts on all of this and my emotions and the things that I've even gone through. It shows how much that, like, this episode, like, really nailed its expression of these themes and ideals. I don't expect every episode to be as good as this. I don't expect every episode to be as explicit as this. But this one like it feels like after the first episode was like a lot more subtle and everything. This one is just like, okay, we open this up in a way that will draw a little bit more of an audience in, and now we're just gonna like throw the gay in their faces, throw the gay in their faces. Just yeet the queerness at them. Oh god, it froze again. I'm getting too I'm showing too much emotion, clearly. I'm getting too active. I don't think my computer's like it. But I seriously don't know why the lag and everything is happening, by the way. I just don't. But either way, yeah, this was really a great episode. Like, any episode that can get me to talk like this kind of passionately, you could say, about this kind of stuff is fantastic. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you think of this episode? What did you think of the specific way this was all handled? Comparative to like maybe some other shows out there that do like showcase queerness more explicitly rather than through allegory. Let me know your thoughts on the horror aspects of this, the visuals. What do you think of the opening? Because the opening, it's like the visuals were pretty creepy, very Ajin demi-human like, but also it's like kind of gave me a little bit of Shiki vibes. And then the song was like a very unique song, the kind you don't normally hear for anime openings. Let me know your thoughts on all of that down below. And as always, no spoilers. Like, you could talk about, like, okay, so how did the manga do this part of the story differently? But just do not spoil me on anything to come, okay? Don't spoil me on any parts or any themes or any ideals that have not been shown within these first 2 episodes. I prefer to watch shows as blind as possible. And I mean, I don't know how I could be more blind on this series at this point. Like, I have 2 episodes to go through, and that's all of my knowledge of this series. So, no spoilers, please. Thank you, as always, so much for tuning in. And thank you to everybody who did vote on the poll to choose this as the replacement series for Turkey. Hope you enjoyed this reaction. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.